Oh, yes. This is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show, sponsored by Cheshire Impact, on a mission to help people maximize their use of Pardot and Salesforce. CheshireImpact.com. Bam. There it is. Ha-ha. All we got to do is hit one button and we all get to have a party. Everyone listening, myself, and my guest. Well, who is she, Casey? Introduce her already. She's a marketing automation and CRM implementation consultant. She is a consultant to the stars, 4X certified, I believe.
So far,
with many more on the way. And also, most importantly here today, a Salesforce 2020 Marketing Champion, manager of Eigen X, Lori Trzcinski. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, it's so cool to hang out with fellow marketing champions and just, geek out over strategy and talk some tech at the same time, especially because we're birds of the feather and we both love marketing automation. We can just geek out on it all day today. So I'm excited to have you here. It's our Marketing Champion series, and I'm going to go ahead right now and just pass you this thing. It's heavy for me, but I feel like you're going to get this. Okay, here you go. You got it?
Thank you. I got it. I work out, but that one's a little heavy.
Was it heavy for you? Well, just
it was heavy.
Practice swinging it around.
The gym's just reopened, so it's been a hot minute.
And for some reason, I never find a machine at the gym that's for hammer throwing, hammer wielding. Maybe they need to invent one.
After all this, that might be your calling.
That could be.
You've got your company, the podcast. This is it.
Imagine that you're getting introduced, this and that, and podcast, and inventor of the Thor hammer gym equipment.
Hey, I've had some ideas, and when I finally found out that someone already invented it, I was a little upset.
Yeah. Well, you gotta pounce on it, right? I mean, I actually invented Uber, and I was like, hey, we should do an app that calls a cab over. It's my friend. He's an app guy. He's like, yeah, we should do that. And they're like, yeah, let's go drink some beer and go to the beach. And then, a few years later, it's like Uber. Like,
there it is. You missed out.
Yeah, just a little bit, but you know what? That's okay. I'm excited to be here. So take Thor's hammer. Now that you're comfortable with it, I see you, throwing it around a little bit, smashing, furniture in your house. Take that hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Just set the record straight once and for all.
Yeah. I mean, my number one myth for sure is that marketers can handle all of marketing. There's just so much going on in the world of marketing now that it's almost impossible to have a do-it-your-all. And for me, without going straight into my background, the biggest thing is, prior to consulting was being a marketing manager. So managing every part of the department, whether it was, digital ads, marketing automation and CRM, print ads, or trade shows, it's literally the gamut of everything. And so you can't have a marketing team where every person is so strong in everything that you do. Content writer, developer, styling. You have the gamut of the possibilities of the types of marketers.
Right.
And I think where the struggle is really seen especially is every company, to be honest.
Yeah.
which is mind-blowing. But the smaller companies, they struggle the most for a couple of different reasons. Just resourcing, so they don't have the capacity to hire enough talent to come in to help them. The budget for that resourcing, so maybe they can't afford to hire the right talent. And just the interaction with other departments. And I know this has been talked about many times over, and it's because it's so important, is that marketing touches almost every department, whether we like it or not. And so it's how do you structure the marketing team to handle every facet and also have that great communication internally. And so it's just kind of understanding each of those roles and how can you create a team that will be will be able to do it all, but not every person has every single skill and talent.
Yeah, I hear you. It's like marketers are always, and sometimes this is what we like. We like the idea of wearing multiple hats, but you're right. We can't be, an ace at all of them. It can't be, oh, my strength is every facet of marketing. It's
Hmm.
not, that's not actually a true strength. Like you're probably really good at one or two things, but you need a team to then help you with the other parts. How do you get to that? How do you balance that out?
Yeah, and it's tough,
Yeah.
because you could ultimately, I see it as a team should be a part of, two different facets. You have the planners, so your directors, your strategists, your marketing managers, the people that are overseeing everything, and then you have your doers, and it's how do you find those people,
Yeah.
even if you don't necessarily know that you need them. In previous roles that I've held, when we started, I kid you not, and this pains me to say this, but we were marketing using an Access database and very
Ouch.
simple email tool. And so that's where we started. And so
Yeah.
when little Lori came on board, I didn't know that's what a marketing team was supposed to be structured like, and that you need all those resources. But MarTech especially has grown so much over the past couple of years, 10 years. I mean, at the rate it's growing now, it's every couple of months. There's
Yeah. It's
something
like
brand
keeps
new out
doubling.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's how do you support that? Because to add in a second rumor, even though we say marketers can't handle everything, well, but you also need to diversify your skills. So, when I think about maybe where I was 10 years ago, didn't have the skill set now. And that's not necessarily something that college directly taught me or grad school directly taught me. It was more so getting out in the world and figuring out what I
Mm-hmm.
liked and what I wanted to do. But you need to be able um, to support future roles and your own
Right.
growth. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost an impossible task, right? To cover everything, but it's also a really cool challenge at the same time to try to approach it all. One of the thoughts that I had when you were really putting light on the subject was just the idea of how important every single person on the team is. And if it's only you to start with, it's really important that, to your point, you diversify your skills. You try
Hmm.
to get smarter at anything and everything you can, but then soon thereafter, when you're able to, fingers crossed, add another person to your team. Don't duplicate yourself because there's a lot of bases to cover. And if you just get like a copy of yourself, you'll have fun at lunchtime. But
That'd be great.
like you're gonna both be good at blog writing, and you're both gonna be good at marketing automation. But then who does the PPC, or who's doing the analytics or the reporting? Like you need to have different kinds of people, like diversity of thought as well,
Hmm.
of how people think. And they may not appeal to you as like, oh, they think just like I do. Well, no, they don't, but that's okay. You really need people to complement you on your team, not just, be carbon copies.
Yeah, and it's a matter of, and I think this is probably one of the, if not number one, top two, top three things that hold people back. It's just, how is your team structured? So not just
Oh,
in your little world of marketing, but your your organization, top down, however the structure of the team is built. Because I've seen organizations where maybe you are great within your own team and you succeed within your own team, but beyond that, no one's listening to you.
oh, geez.
It's
Yeah.
not collaborative. It truly, um, it's just not there. And I think once you hit a type of organization, whether they grow into that or it's just something where you say this is never going to work out, where this is how they will be, um, the collaborative nature then allows you to share just enough about your skills so that other people can maybe intelligently talk about it. Hit by a bus scenario,
Mm-hmm.
you're not there tomorrow, where someone can still pick up the pieces and maybe know what you did and what's required of that role,
Yeah.
but to be on the same page with everybody.
Yeah. Across the organization. I mean, how many times, I'm sure you bumped into this too, where somebody has Marketo and their one person leaves. And that's a tool, unlike Pardot where like the whole family can learn it. Marketo is a little tough in that regard. So no one knows it. They know it and so they're like, I think we should migrate. And you're like, cool, what's in your account? Tell me how you, we have no idea. We have
Yeah.
no idea what's in there. I'm like, okay, cool. We'll go hop in there and help you figure it out. But like, how true is that? In one of the situations we deal with, but across anything, hit by a bus or that person just, usually it's like, oh, they go off to be a consultant because they realize, oh, Marketo people are valuable. Let's go be a consultant.
Yeah.
And they leave, and it's like, yeah, you can be stuck without any next step, knowing what to do. But I also like that you brought up communicating across the organization too, and having people understand what you do. What's your approach? Like, how do you do that the right way? How do you get out of just your marketing silo when you're doing your communication?
It's trial and error, right?
Right?
So it depends on the department. And I mean, my biggest thing, I mean, it's across consulting, right? As you know, but
Yeah.
communication and how people perceive you. Um, at one point in time, I took over a role for someone that left, and as I started to communicate with other teams like IT and HR, they turned to me and they said, we like dealing with you better than XYZ. And so it's all in your approach. Everyone will have their hesitations with, oh, marketing's asking for something else, or they want to, especially IT. But it's learning how to learning how to communicate with them, because otherwise, something as simple as, hey, we're implementing Pardot, can you put this tracking code here and validate this domain, and et cetera, might be a huge roadblock, and you're going, this is very simple. It's just 2 or 3 things. It might take you 10 minutes.
Right.
And it's, as long as they feel like you're on the same page and they're helping you, the biggest thing is to not make it seem like a job threat, or that you're doing something that might be taking part of their job away, but rather helping expand your marketing empire, if you will. That's
Yeah. Right.
helping the company and furthering what it does, and taking you into the future with it, and not just stagnant, yes, we'll follow how things always go.
Mm-hmm.
And especially IT will understand that, not should, but will, because they're constantly making sure. One of my previous roles was in healthcare, so hello HIPAA. I mean,
Oh, geez.
making sure that security, and they're always up to date with the latest technology and tools, and building security and all that kind of stuff, where they're going to be the ones to understand it. It might just be taking the fancy lingo off and kind of to the utmost lowest level of plain talk of how you want to get there. And I've even just in my current role, the way that I found an interesting way how that related was talking to developers. If you try to talk to developers about Pardot, HubSpot, Salesforce, it's just they'll just stare at you. And so it's dumbing down the basics of what you're doing, and the intent behind it, and then it makes it a lot easier for people to understand. And then obviously at a higher level, how does that impact your bottom line, your initiatives? What are you going to measure against? We all know that's what C-suites, executives, people that are signing off on you even really using that tool, that's what they care about.
Yeah, in their own language, right? I mean, developers don't know usually all the crazy marketing terms. So it's like, it's maybe not even bringing it to their level as opposed to just like talking their language. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, you speak Korean. Here's your language. Or
Hmm.
I speak, Farsi. Here's how we just need to not just use our same, like to your point, not use our same vocabulary and same languages when talking to them. Explain what you're looking to have done, not your goofy marketing terms. Like how many
Yeah.
times do we get in trouble with reporting and all these other things with the marketing terms, or just like not decoding them for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, you brought up the thing around dealing with IT, and I think this is something, and you even mentioned some of the basic setup that Pardot has. And one of them is the email authentication. And I feel like I've seen that where, you have set up for Pardot. There's like 4 different tech items. You submit 3 in Jira or whatever your organization does. And then IT is like, no,
Hmm.
like, no,
Hmm.
like what? This SPF thing, and oftentimes they haven't done it before. Like their
Right.
organization doesn't even have SPF set up. So like, what is this weird, wacky thing you want to do to our domain, name servers? Like what's the text? We know all about text entries. Like, what are you trying to do here? And it took a phone call. It was funny because the marketing team at the time was like, help. IT is saying like, first of all, saying, what is this thing? And you can't put it on there. What do we do?
And it's step one, basically.
It is. It is. It's like, it's all about emailing. If you want your emails to go through, you kind of need to do this. Like I literally have sent email recently with a tester account with it not on there. People don't get the email.
Nope.
It was interesting. It was a test. I sent one with it and one without it. And I know it just says Yahoo and it just says like certain servers. And you're like, I don't send too many Yahoo accounts, but it's more than Yahoo these days.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Email is the number one.
yeah.
You have to make sure.
Yeah, and we got on a call and we're like, look, this is why it's important, and don't worry, it won't blow you up. It's risk, right? They're worried about risk. Like, is the server going to be down? Because if so, then we're toast. Like that's their whole job is to keep it up and like play defense.
Yeah, yeah, and you hope that you're close with your IT team because then you can solve it a lot faster. But with some clients I've had that are large universities and institutions, they might just be, or even companies, they might just be a subsidiary where they have to reach out to IT and they don't even know who it is
Yeah.
or what they do. Um, and this even touches on this, and then going back to how do you communicate with someone like developers is once you start to figure out what that common language is, then even if you don't do that role, you learn so much from it and you're able to then take it forward and say, this is how, I need to communicate with XYZ
Mm-hmm.
versus, this other person. And you find yourself, and where I find it comes really into play in our industry is knowing the other platforms. Even if you've never did a full implementation and used it for years, you're able to speak more intelligently about what where they're at, current state, and what their future state needs to look like.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a number of implementations, taking people off of maybe HubSpot to Pardot. I've done the reverse, and
Yeah.
what's the terminology, what's the
Wait,
lingo.
wait, wait. You've taken people off of Pardot onto HubSpot?
The-
That sounds like
Their
heresy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I've
Did it feel
actually,
wrong when you were doing it?
well, yeah, I didn't want to say it, but I mean, it's every tool has their sweet spot.
Yeah.
And I even wrote it was maybe not my favorite paper that I ever wrote when I was in grad school, but I learned so much. It was about HubSpot's marketing plan and
Oh, sure.
everything about their target markets and how they, get into different areas and things like that. And after I learned that, I was like, number one, I was the target audience for them
Yeah.
a while back. And so when a client decided to pick that, it for them, it was because they are the marketing team.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like we said in the beginning, it's that support system. If you don't have, every tool is a little bit different. Some requires more technical expertise, like you said, even with Marketo. Pardot does as well, depending on what your end goals are. It could be keep it simple, or you could really use it robustly and do a lot of creative things with it, but you need those other people. And so if you don't have them, you might look towards the more marketed, quote unquote, user-friendly type platforms, which, HubSpot has a good hold in as well. And I'm sure it's just their salespeople and account executives between the teams must just talk dirt on each other all the time.
Yeah. Well, and HubSpot's marketing is on point, right? Their marketing is also the original marketing. I know I grew up on it. It was like, I don't know what the example of the equivalent is. I'll say it's Kool-Aid. Maybe it's Kool-Aid, but it's like what you drank as a kid in marketing. It was like HubSpot content. I have a question about organic or inbound or this or that. I think they claim they actually invented the term inbound anyway. So it's like, of course, it's all their content. Their content's on point. Yeah. And then, the tool behind it, to your point, it certain times and places, but usually companies, grow off of it. Right. And so the scary thing is when like a big company's like, I'm choosing HubSpot. You're like, oh, wow. You'll be back. Can we leave all your stuff on the old platform so that we don't have to remove it? Yeah, but you're right there. I mean, when somebody's marketing is on point like that, they're everywhere. Everywhere you go, you see them. Everything you search, you see them. It's all over the place, and it's really powerful to have like that brand everywhere.
And it's all about what you're doing moving forward. So I think, not to kind of toot our own horn, we do Salesforce consulting, right? But the marketing advances that Salesforce is making with things like Pardot Premium, B2BMA Plus, like those tools, I go, you just can't get them everywhere.
I know.
And so I'm starting to see that there's a little bit of they're trying to close in all the gaps of the different levels of marketing, from very basic Pardot to you have all the bells and whistles Marketing Cloud. And I don't know that every tool does that. They have their one niche market and that's it. So I'd be curious to see over the next couple of years, maybe that's all they need,
right?
To see where it goes. But it's great that they're developing all of these tools. And so on the consulting side, it's our job to know these things, and it's also fun to know them.
Well, it's come a long way already too. Like, what's your take on it today, marketing automation today, or even where it's going? I know it's like a big question. I'm like asking Elon Musk how to build a rocket.
Well, there's two parts. Step one, buy rocket.
Right. From the Russians. Russians say no. Step two, build your own rocket. There you go.
I always say, when I came into the world of consulting, I always say my job might have not existed 10 years ago. Maybe it's not 10, maybe it's 20, 30. But it's developing so rapidly that even being aware of these tools, you have to wonder who's going to support them. It's great because the builds are longer and you get to visually show teams that maybe you're doing a brand new build for where you can get them to, and then getting them to that spot. And that is the most satisfying thing ever. Yep. There's a lot of bumps in the road. It's never never goes totally how you planned it. But the tools themselves are just growing so quickly, and
they are.
It's up to the people to, if that's your jam and you are in, let's say, a department and your responsibility is marketing automation or whatever capacity, just keeping up with the trends to at least know they exist. Even if you're not using them, if you can't afford them now, it's something you plan for in the future, and you say, we would really love to add this on. We'll now be able to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And so sometimes it's just the knowledge that the tools are available. I mean, being able to implement all of them is great, but we know most times in an implementation, you might only get a piece of the puzzle.
Right. Like start with some piece, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah.
I know this is another tough question, but hey, it's Friday. Let's do this.
Why
Hey, if you're
not?
listening and it's actually Tuesday, pretend for the next few minutes or so that it's Friday. Like
Yeah.
you deserve it. Call in late, or maybe if it's a Saturday, let it still be Saturday. But if it's not Friday, today is Friday.
And if it's Sunday, not like Sunday scaries at 6, 7 o'clock. It's early.
If it's Sunday, it's actually going back to Friday.
Yep.
So yeah. Saturday, you're like, the week's coming. But actually I'm like kind of excited on Sunday because I'm like, let me add it. Let me add that week. What do I got tomorrow? Oh my gosh. So if I were to ask you for like your number one tip, because I know you work in marketing automation all the time, your number one tip for maximizing marketing automation, what would that be?
Number one tip is, and this goes with everything we've already kind of talked about, is your number one tip is having good people. They may fit the bill of being just great employees and maybe having skill sets that are attractive to the company, but they may not hit marketing automation. I think it takes a special type of person to love it and not to just do it because it's there and they maybe started a job and they have it and they're just continuing the pieces. But if you don't love it, then you're not going to have the desire to really take it and run with it, because maybe what was built before you came on was great, but not excellent. And like we said, with all these new releases, maybe you do have the budget to pick something else up or negotiate with your sales rep. I love negotiation.
Yeah, tell me about that. You do?
Yeah. And so
are you good at it?
Well, I mean, you win some, you lose some, but it's the
Sure.
thrill of the chase.
Yes.
And so maybe, whether that's negotiating with your sales rep to get a better price on something that you want to, add on, or maybe it's negotiating with finance
Right.
on allowing you to move finances to that piece of your budget. So,
Wow.
yeah, but number one, maximizing the tool can be as great as possible. But if the people behind it aren't great, then it's just a tool.
Right. It's funny too that, it could be a trick question or not, but the idea of the number one tip around maximizing that tool is actually the people behind it, not even the tool. So, and that's not an answer people would necessarily expect. And I like that, because you're right, because that person may have 9,000 things that they can do with that tool, but especially if they love it. I've definitely encountered people, even I like to work with people who just love it too. Cause I'm like, I love this thing, I love it so much. And then I want to work with people who also have the same passion for it. Well, I had a question I wanted to ask you, because I know you work in a lot of with different technologies and supporting tools too. I wondered if you had like a favorite tech add-on, or like your favorite cool go-to tool.
I have a lot of
Nice.
little tools I love, but one that I've surprised people with, and not being paid for promotion here, but it's called builtwith.com, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's a cool, I'm sure there's others out there, but it's a cool little way to just go on the site and see. I'm always curious when talking to people what they're working with, and knowing what they have or what they don't have, or what they used to have. And you can type in the web address of any company, and it will give you all of the tools that they're using on their website. So maybe they had Marketo, and now they have Pardot, and it'll show you when they bought it, when they stop paying for it. It literally constantly scans everyone's web pages to determine what tools they have. So maybe you have, Google Tag Manager, or you're using WordPress versus Joomla, and then all of kind of the little in between stuff that you might have on your site. And it's kind of cool because I've shocked some people with with that information internally in my own company, with being like, I didn't know that's how you could find it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's a lot of tools out there like that, because even in talking to over time, people from Salesforce Pardot, even, and I keep going back to HubSpot, but they knew we were using Pardot. And I said, well, how do they know? They're not on.
There's no logo. It's not like MailChimp, sent with.
Yeah. And I mean, you can just look at the HTML of the website and say, oh, there's, the Pardot insignia for like tracking code. But this tool, it's very cool because it tells you how long and when. And so from a marketing perspective, if they've onboarded a bunch of tools, dropped them, or maybe you could see that they've never had a marketing tool, to know that history and understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And it's cool. I know there's a free version and a paid version, but it's like just that little extra bit of knowledge.
Yeah. And it's way more accurate than the random email from someone in some foreign land going, I have lists for you, all subscribers to this platform. And they're probably just using Built-With anyways, right? But usually it's some really old list, and you're like, ugh, never buy that, right? Never buy that list from a back alley to then put that in your like clean Pardot account to try to email people. Like, you're just going to obliterate your reputation. But
what a great decision.
Understanding who's who, right? So that stop trying to boil the ocean. Stop trying to go after everyone. Go after the people that can actually work with you.
Mm-hmm.
Makes total sense. That's smart. Yeah. That's a really cool tool. Where do you think the future? Tell me about the future. I heard you can foresee the future. So I wanted to know. Tell me, oh great wise one. What's coming around the corner that we should keep our eye open? Any strategies? Any technologies? Any developments in the marketing space? Just you kind of see them coming around the mountain when they come. Is that it'll be coming right? So I'm breaking a song. It must be Friday.
We all still remember the song.
We all still remember the song.
It's not just
You think kids these days know that song?
No.
Coming around the mountain.
No. I've seen, not to totally divert off topic, but
divert.
I was one of those people that signed up for TikTok over quarantine.
Oh.
And that's how I waste hours of my life. And
I did too, but of course now China's spying on us apparently. So.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. But they know my interests. They're very vague interests.
I think the point is they're already looking at me through my phone camera. So looking at me through TikTok as well. Just one more way they can spy on me.
Yeah. But one of the fun videos, speaking of that song, is they take someone that was maybe born in the 2000s or 2010, and then someone from 1990, 80, 70, whatever. You pick a generational gap, whether it's small or large, and they play the songs from kind of working up in generation, and to see just the level of confusion by the younger generation that's on the video of like, what am I listening to? Where did this come from? I've never heard it in my life. And then you're sitting there going, oh my God,
right?
How do you not know that song?
The scary part's when it's like from the 90s. Like, what?
Yeah.
You don't know that song?
No, I was harassed, and I say harassed because as a child it was not fun. But with the oldies and like songs going back to the 50s, so I'm like, I have no sympathy.
Right.
Learn some previous stuff, guys.
Yeah, the songs I had to hear on my the Shell gas station gave out, if you got a gallon of gas, it'd give you a cassette tape of Cruising to the Oldies or something, right?
Ooh.
Some like classic rock tunes, and they're actually pretty cool. But as a kid, I'm like, oh, what are these things?
Yeah, what is this? Yeah.
And like, you're stuck in the car. What are you gonna do? It's like you're in an interrogation room. You just car trip and your parents want to hear these songs, so you're
You
going to hear
can't
them too.
drive yet? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you hear
Suck
them.
it
But
up.
it kind of expands your mind too, to the point where now you're like, you can pick and choose. But you're right. That'd be really interesting to see different people exposed to stuff like that. It kind of reminds me, not the reactions. I think that's cool. But I've seen this one couple where they like do the dances, or this one guy, he'll like do the dances from every decade or something, you know?
Oh yeah.
And they'll
Yeah.
start in one decade and you're like, oh, that's how people dance. And they kind of did it all the way up to like the present day. And you're like, yeah, we look way sillier than we did in the 50s when people are like actually
It's
dancing.
I mean it's one hell of a marketing tool, because what I see and what you see are two totally, I would imagine, two
Mm,
totally different. You can't even talk to someone about um every little video that they've seen,
yeah.
because it's so different. And I'm like, my God, this is just genius for marketing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
awful and it's genius at the same time. And so you just internally don't know how to feel about
Right. Right. And it's hilarious when we see people flip flop, be like grandpa's flossing or something,
yeah.
and you're just like, what are you doing? That's crazy. Um, the different generations and decades, does that play into any of the marketing that you've done or seen, marketing to, the old and the new alike?
I've I've seen it more so from going back to the departmental structure.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes you have, and it's all about the culture and the mindset. So
Hmm.
sometimes you might have a department where no matter how great you are, how valuable your insights are, it's the older, the wiser, the better always. And that's true to some degree, right?
Yep.
They've gotten to that point in life, not just by luck. Uh,
Right.
but but yeah, I mean, it's totally lost my train of
Well, we were talking about the
thought.
future. We got sidetracked talking about like dancing and TikTok. Oh, TikTok. Before we leave that, RIP TikTok. But especially even if Microsoft buys it, still rest in peace,
Yeah.
because I can't imagine Microsoft. So we bought this property called TikTok. Like,
I mean, I'll get some time back in my day though, which will
yeah,
be nice.
I think they totally murdered Skype, Microsoft. So. And
Yeah,
everyone was using Skype, and then they have it, and they're like, "Flee for the hills!"
not.
Not
I
working.
used it at some point in time.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Fingers crossed they haven't messed up LinkedIn, you know? Like, oh my gosh, how important is LinkedIn? And they haven't messed it up. So okay,
Yeah, yeah.
don't mess
LinkedIn's
that up.
it's interesting. Um,
Hmm.
it's very professional marketing, and then
Yeah.
I always feel like with LinkedIn, you're putting your best professional foot forward, but also holding your breath, because
Mm.
you can't get, especially today, in today's world, you know, if you offend anybody on there, or post things that could be a potential client lost, or a
Hmm.
potential reference lost. And so I think LinkedIn is I love it though as a
Yeah.
tool, because especially you just get to meet people. I mean, the Marketing Champions group, it's a great way to do that on its own, but
Yeah.
it's a great way to connect with people, and then professionally take that connection forward, and just learn great advice that you wouldn't get through Facebook. Maybe it's not enough to read on Twitter, and then connect with things like people's blogs, or YouTube channels, or things like that, where
Right.
you kind of continue that knowledge learning.
Could you imagine Microsoft buys TikTok? First of all, that's crazy. And then they like integrate it with LinkedIn because someone thought that was a good idea. And you have
Yeah.
all these like kids, free time, summertime, doing TikTok videos. By the way, there's this girl named Demi, I believe, and she's like this fitness freak, and she did a Have you seen the stand up challenge? I'm like obsessed with this.
The
Um,
one with the chair.
no, there's a guy and a girl. Or I guess you can have friends. But in this one, um, her friend or boyfriend is flat on the beach, and then she's standing on his back, and then there's a song going, and then she jumps up, and then he gets to his hands and knees. She still lands on his back, and then
No,
and
I
then
haven't seen
she
that.
jumps again, and he stands up a little bit, and he's holding his hands on his knees. And then she jumps again, and then she jumps onto his shoulders
Oh my God.
while he's standing up. And then that's basically the end of it. But the way she finishes the thing is she does a backflip off his shoulders.
That sounds like a disaster for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I keep all
yeah.
my super fittest friends. I'm like, I want to see you do this. You know, like that's the kind of friend I am. I'm like, I want to be able to do this, but since I probably shouldn't or can't, I want to see you try doing it.
Do you train for it? And
I'll catch you.
I'll call the ambulance when it goes
Imagine
wrong.
that, right? Those, the TikTokers are like, wait, what? LinkedIn? What's going on? Or imagine having all your LinkedIn crazy videos tied to your professional career, your professional profile.
That's a very interesting line to look at.
Yeah, let's not cross that line. Man, so many people do that with social too, right? Twitter's a little bit not as popular, but where people would say crazy things on Twitter. I remember one person, I don't know what company I was at, but it was like interview for a job, and she was perfect. She seems like a great person, but I went to Twitter and it was like, OMG. Like there was like sexual things. There was like, it was just it was like, it was textbook inappropriate. Like it was like straight out of an HR manual on a public Twitter profile. And it was like, wow. I was really sad because I was like, otherwise you
had such a good shot.
Oh my gosh. Like what kind of a person is like, just like that, almost like careless, just sharing that stuff on Twitter? I mean, this isn't Facebook, people. This is public.
Yeah. And I mean, prior to, I've had my consulting job for about 2 years now. And prior to that, I was in a long job search. I wanted to make sure I found the right thing, and it wasn't a just jump ship to jump ship. But even then I thought, well, do I need a resume? Should everything just be digital and online? And because that's the first thing people are going to look at. They might not, the piece of paper, sure, that's just, a hi, hello, you can verbalize that, but they're going to go and look at your social media and what's on there, about you. And so I always, best practice, I Google myself periodically, with my last name. It's not very hard to find me. So
as long as you can spell it, they can find you, right?
There's 2 of me. I'm happy there's another one.
There's 2 of you?
There's 2 Lori Trzcinskis in the world, in the US. Yeah.
Does it bother you?
As an only child, a little bit.
Oh no, it's like doubly.
But she's a totally different person, and I get that right away. So
yeah.
Different job, different.
Casey Cheshire. He was like a baseball, or he was like a high school baseball player in Georgia or something like that. But you know what? Good luck ranking in search, my friend.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I've got a little bit of content out there, so it's not like you're the same name as a rock star. But I've been online for a bit, son. So
that's right. Put them in their place,
Yeah. It's like who's this old weird guy with all these photos?
He's a nice person, but not today.
Yeah, I did like image search for Casey Cheshire, and
this now? Oh, this might not be good luck.
See, look, Casey Cheshire on MySpace. That's not me.
I tried to find my MySpace account. And I couldn't find it. I don't know if it was canceled, but I just wanted to reminisce for 5 minutes and then leave. No, couldn't find it.
Right.
It was a little sad. It felt like a part of history was gone.
Is it not even functioning anymore? It is functioning.
It's on, but it's more like a music platform, and
I see.
It's not what we know and love. I mean, they kept elements of it, but
it's different now.
You can't pick, your top 8.
Why dumb it down? Let it be a Facebook copycat. There's still people with AOL email addresses. Ride the thing into the sunset. But yeah, I'm looking at this guy who has myspace.com/Casey Cheshire. So I guess he got one up on me.
Wow.
And
you were sleeping that day.
Photo ever too. He's got his tongue sticking out. He's next to probably his girlfriend or something. It's like, thanks guy. Thanks.
Yeah, not me.
Set a good precedent for Casey's around the world.
Hey, that's MySpace. You just say social media is just for that. my generation, I think that's partially how I learned how to code a little bit and, design things and make sure that pages were certain colors and things like that. And it's ironically enough, I think my MySpace had a tiny little piece of current Lori.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, I need to close this because I'm gonna get lost in. Okay, there's not too many of this guy. He may not even exist. He may just be doing his thing in Georgia. Good. I don't have to
Claim the
compete. Can you
page.
imagine like having two people really competing for like search and brand and that kind of thing with the same name? It's got to be tough. It's like you have to do that with your company, or maybe you're competing for SEO, but like for yourself, to be battling mano a mano with someone who's like a copycat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a lose-lose battle if the person on the other end is maybe an SEO
Right.
person or advertiser. Good
I
luck.
will say had a former client who had the exact same name as a porn star one time.
Oh, that's not helpful for
I
them.
don't think they were the same person. I
Ah,
don't know. But you try to look up the person's, information, their background, LinkedIn and stuff. And you're like, that's, okay. I don't know about this.
I need to see a lot of pictures to figure this out.
And you're never going to ask them about it.
No.
So it's just shrouded in mystery the whole time. Like, I
Hmm.
wonder. I digress. The question was all about the future. I guess we've been talking about the future this whole time.
This whole
Anything
time.
coming around the mountain?
Um, I see, and we live in Salesforce, so I see that there's a total 360 view and world that people should be living in, and it's not just a matter of moving forward talking about it, but actually taking the time to connect all of your marketing pieces, one small step at a time, and being able to figure out, and this leans more towards the capabilities of Marketing Cloud even, but what is your customer like? Not just what do they
Yeah.
click on, what words are appealing to them, but how do they want to be communicated with, and what does that mean for your bottom line? I think especially people that use, some of the tools have a heavy price tag to them. Marketing Cloud one, another one is Google Ads. So
Yeah.
if whether you are using it yourself and you're a Google Ads guru, which is tough to do, or you have an outside agency working that for you. I see this a lot with some of our higher education clients that want to connect, Google to Pardot or wherever, and drive through that full life cycle of what did that student cost me over the lifetime, not
Mm-hmm.
just what did it cost me to get them in the door. And especially
Right.
now, I am fascinated by, we're switching to online learning or not, and what's going on with all of that.
Yeah. It's so
It's
crazy.
interesting to consider on top of the existing challenges, but what did they cost me to get them to apply? What did it cost over maybe just your bachelor's, your undergraduate degree? If they offer a master's programs or certificates, what if how do I further promote to them, and keeping that one person as a continual student or not, maybe they
Mm-hmm.
stop at bachelor's, but what's the price tag for that? And so being able to connect the tools and having that total view is, well, maybe a bachelor student costs me X dollars for this specific program.
Right. Talking about the
Maybe,
acquisition cost.
yeah, the
Yeah.
acquisition cost, and then the retention cost.
Ah,
Um,
right.
you never know what that might be, but some people just know they're running. There's still so many people out there that are siloed, and you can't blame them. Going back to the beginning of what we said, they might not have the capacity or the resources,
Right.
and Google Ads, especially, you can really have your costs run away from you. you could be spending a ton of money and not getting any results. And so it's the strategy behind it. And then also, figuring out, are your investments actually worth it? And we all know that in the grand scheme of looking at a company, finance and the C-suite will love for you to bring that information to them. And so if you can say, X client cost us X number of dollars, that's all they need. They don't care what's connected where, how you got there.
The whole story. Just tell us the data point. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild to think about.
Yeah, it's a continual struggle.
Yeah.
I always say, like, to be as cliche as possible, but expect the unexpected. Every time I talk to a client, I'm shocked sometimes at what internal capabilities they may have or may not have, and then where they plan on going.
Right.
And I see, it's an interesting point I wanted to talk about today, and I think we've touched on it a lot, but your actual capacity versus your ideal capacity, and then how you get there.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, your actual capacity is, and that could be just you as a person. It could be the company, the department, whatnot. But I have clients where they come in and they say, we want to implement Pardot. Or maybe they implement Pardot and their long-term goal is they want to expand to Marketing Cloud. But in working with them and getting to know the team and who would support this, sometimes the actual capacity that they have is barely able to support Pardot.
Right.
And as consultants, that's excellent. If you want to have from our side, that's a lot of continued support and all that kind of good stuff. I want them to be able to support the tool on their own.
Right. That's smart.
Let them fly.
How much, what can you actually pull off, right?
Right.
I think sometimes the challenge is we can bite off more than we can chew. Thinking, oh, this is just going to be a little tool, just going to replace my MailChimp with this Pardot thing. It's like, okay, it's a big deal. You're going to be changing how you're doing your marketing. You're going to be doing automation now. There's so much to it. You gotta put some time toward it. You can't just dabble. People just kind of dabbling in all these different channels.
Yeah, and I've seen it too, where sometimes maybe the structure of their business and how they operate requires something like Marketing Cloud, but we just look at them and go, I don't know how. We want to help you get there, but you need some internal restructuring, hiring, however you want to get there to be able to support it. Because maybe the tool you have now and you want to implement is not going to cut it. It's going to get you halfway. And so it's that ideal state. And I've had other clients where they started out, we actually did one client I'm thinking of in particular, they had kind of very remedial marketing tools, but very large business. They did Pardot, Salesforce, and Marketing Cloud.
Jeez.
And it was a long project, but they had a support system, to build this out. Did they have every little resource in the beginning? No, they might have gone to a recruiting firm or some sort of job hiring firm and had people temporarily fill in the pieces, but then they hired some of those pieces to complete the team. And so in that scenario, they learned as they went and they figured it out, but they have the tools to keep building on that. And that you just go, that's a dangerous business, because they're going to do well because they have it together and they're just going to keep adding tools and functionality and it's all about that support.
That theme to very original point.
Yeah.
Who are you?
I don't know.
Taking me back in time, like you have so much knowledge on all these different topics, all the different hats, even just being able to take a step back and look at yourself from a third person view and see how you fit in the team and all that. Can you take us back in time to like little Lori days? What was it like growing up? Did you always know you're going to be in marketing?
No.
What's the scoop?
Further from the truth, actually. So yeah, so only child. I think that really made me a go-getter.
Yeah.
Unlike the stereotype of being spoiled and parents give you everything. Parents were blue collar, so mom and dad held random jobs at random point in times. But I think it was that hardworking nature to
Mm-hmm.
help provide for me and themselves as well, right? That was instilled from me in the beginning.
Yeah.
I haven't moved very far, but always kind of lived in the Philadelphia suburban area. And I look back at videotapes as a kid and had the strongest Philly accent. And I go, who the hell
Really?
is that?
What
Yeah.
can you do your Philly accent?
No, this is it. I don't know what happened, but I just feel like as a little kid, I was like dipped in Philly.
How
And
does
then,
what's a Philly accent like? What I know, like in Boston, it's like pack the ca. We drop the as and we add as where they don't belong.
yeah.
Um,
Um, Things like water ice and I
water,
don't,
water.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's some things I say that I go, oh, that's definitely,
Oh, you can hear it
from
yourself
the
too. It's not
area.
just other people going, "What? What'd you say?"
Yeah, but not as much. I think
Yeah.
it's dropped a lot, but it was funny because I just looked at that and I went, oh my God,
Right.
whose voice is that?
Who is that?
Who
Right. It's
is
kind of like
that?
I listened to like episode 1, the early episodes of like this podcast, and like episode 3, I talked to Adele Ravella, who wrote Buyer Personas. It is amazing. I don't know how but like
That's
I'm glad I
cool.
did. But
Yeah.
that was like episode 3. I didn't have any structure. I was like, so yeah, hi,
Hi.
And I actually got the myth smashing from her, which is interesting.
Yeah. I love
Hundreds of
personas.
episodes later.
That's
Yeah.
I like, it's always fun to talk about that and
Yeah.
figure that out for people because most times they don't sit and think about it. It's the general
Right.
overarching, this is the type of person I want to go after, but when you really break it down and then you can kind of diverge your marketing from there and parse it out, it's kind of cool.
Right. Right.
but
Yeah. It's
but
crazy.
yeah, so back to me.
Yeah. No. Totally. So. It,
But yeah, so I as a kid, I've always been active in something,
hmm
and it's sometimes I think the flavor of the year, so to speak. But as a kid, I did a lot of ballet and dance and piano, and so that creativity side of me was always there from the start. Um, I always remember talking to my grandmother and being super proud of a project or a presentation I did. Kind of the visuals and the so no surprise marketing
hmm
falls into it. Then I kind of fell in love with sports. Couldn't seem to pick one. Soccer, basketball, volleyball, tennis. I think basketball, if I had to pick one, might have been my top.
Yeah. So just always like staying active, just
Right.
competing and pushing yourself. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And so at some point I remember hating running with a passion, which
Really.
some of those sports you think that doesn't make sense, but, but it's start, stop. It's quick. It's not like um, and one day I just got into running and I think it really helps you clear your head, clear your mind. And I've loved it ever since.
hmm
But kind of in addition to the sports, went to your usual, um, middle school, high school, all that good stuff. When I went to college, in high school, I really fell in love with science and chemistry
Really.
and forensics specifically. And I thought about it the other day and I thought, I think CSI was like a really wildly not true show with how they showed things.
Yeah, right.
And all the 50 cities it had a show for. But but at the time that I remember being around, but I was obsessed with this, just being in the lab and science. And
Interesting.
I had was my favorite class ever in high school. It was a year of forensics, and the first half of the class was I forget how they broke it down, but it was 2 different sessions of forensic, and it just fascinated me to be able to figure out what was unique and what was different
Mm-hmm.
about every little clue or sample. And so when I decided to go to college, that was my focus. So clearly not what we're talking about
That's
today.
cool though. Yeah.
And so when I picked a college, I picked the college that was surrounded around science, right? So I went to Ursinus College, which probably most of the world hasn't heard of, but it's outside of Philadelphia, closer to like the King of Prussia area.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah. I
it's
know that area.
yeah, and it's a small liberal arts college, but excellent at science. And so that's where I started. And I always say it wasn't the science that killed me, it was the math.
Oh,
And I am
yes.
I'm great at science math, great at business math, awful at math.
At math. Yeah.
Awful at it. And so there was so much of that involved as well that I just was like, you know what, let's get out while we're ahead. So after the first year, I changed and totally drastic, went to being a media and communications major, picked up a little minor in dance just to entertain myself, I
Oh hell yeah.
guess.
That's cool.
And then picked up business and business and economics after. And that fascinated me as well. There were a couple of classes there that really just econometrics was the class, and it was basically business science. So like being able to predict things or come up with a formula for how we expect things to pan out. And so I don't know, that always just fascinated me. But
What was the math? You remember like what math they were throwing at you? Because
oh,
the same thing happened with me in computer science. I think colleges like murder ambitions of some students too, because you're like, I love technology, I love this, and they're like, cool, you're gonna learn how to program microprocessors and abstract algebra, which you'll never
yeah,
use anyways.
never,
But let's go learn that.
never.
What do you remember any of the classes where you're just like, what am I doing here?
It was, I mean, the first 2 classes you started out with were calculus.
Yeah.
And
Had
I
you done
think,
that in high school or?
what did I do? No, I mean, took every math class you needed to, and but no, none like that in high school. But until college, it was a shock, because I also think it was partially the curriculum and the professor.
Yeah.
I had a roommate who had an opposite one, and it was easy. She loved it. Da da da
No
da.
way.
And I'm like, oh.
Jeez.
So it was the kind of question, or kind of class where a test might be one question,
Uh-huh.
and it's the entire book of knowledge to get to the answer to that one question. You just went, no, come on.
Right.
How am I going to get to you know what? So, but whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, what am I going to do? And so I picked up those other majors, graduated, had no clue
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted to do at all. And so I was job searching for a couple of months, and started out actually in manufacturing.
Huh.
It was a family-owned business, and there was a marketing role, and just some of the things like writing or whatever were, you're coming out of college, you've already done that. Seemed
Right.
interesting to me.
Right.
So started there, no marketing budget. I mean, just imagine having like, we'll approve what you ask for, but basically $0.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I was able to DIY my marketing skills. So WordPress,
Mm-hmm.
Google Ads. This was all like, no, they weren't telling me to do any of this. I think I even Joomla at one point, we like switched CMS systems.
Jeez.
Trying to think what else I used. Adobe Creative
Yeah.
Suite.
Yeah.
But then it wasn't like cloud-based. All of those tools. So I knew soon enough, like, I need to fly away from this job. I'm never going to move out of mom and dad's if I don't,
Right.
move on. So let's not be a forever child at home. So I moved on to, I found a job in a healthcare management company.
Yeah.
So got familiar with the world of private equity and all
That's
that
awesome.
good stuff as well. It's fascinating. And so just honed my skills there.
Yep.
Really learned when we got there. Like I said, I think we had access and an email tool.
Mm-hmm.
And about a year into it, we decided that we needed to do more. And so very, very small team. Just like my first job, it was just me. This team was small. It was maybe 2 other people. And so we implemented Pardot and Salesforce. And I pretty much ran the implementation. I was our go-to from their side. And so that side of things, I started really evaluating my job and didn't like all of the pieces to it. Like I said, you can't be a master of all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, well,
Gotta pick.
What do I want to move on to? And what part do I really enjoy? And that was I was like, digital marketing. If it involves Pardot and Salesforce, great. If it doesn't, I'll figure it out. But I just knew that was the key point. And I think what really sealed it in for me was I had attended, we were small enough where I went to actually a couple of Dreamforces. And you get there and you're just like,
oh yeah,
these are my people.
Right.
and if you don't have that feeling, then you probably don't belong there.
Right.
But I just was like, okay, something in this capacity moving forward. I don't know what it is. I don't know how I find it because
Yeah.
And so eventually a recruiter found me. And I mean, the rest is history,
Jeez.
right? Just building upon where I am now at Eigen X, but continual learner. So over the course of my current job, my last job, I got my master's, and now with Salesforce, a couple of certifications, like we said in the beginning, a couple more. Who knew a marketer would at some point have their hands in a CBQ project? You just don't.
Oh no, you've done those?
That, yes.
Oh, sounds like torture.
That's for a separate call.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's forever learning. And I think what's great about that is it makes you a great candidate for any role you hold in life. And it always amazes me. I think sometimes when I'm working with clients and they only want to do their role and that's it and not go any further.
Yeah.
And that's not everybody but when you come across that kind of person, I think, oh, it's just because you can see that it's going to affect their actual capacity to grow their division and their department. And I think there's 2 types of people in this world. There's the kind that's okay with where everything is, and then there's the kind that's like you always have to be learning something.
Right.
Your brain never totally shuts off.
Oh man, it's funny how similar, like math. Ugh, it's so crazy. But it's really about the people and the connections and the work and the technology. If hypothetical for you, if you could travel back in time, because I might have a time machine, can't confirm or deny that, but I might have one here in New Hampshire.
Secret safe.
Yes, it's under a tarp in the backyard, in case you're curious. So if you could use that time machine, COVID's all done and all that good jazz. You go back in time, but it goes back to a particular time. It goes back to when you are like 3 or 4 days out of graduating your undergrad. So you've just got that first degree and you're about to basically start your career. What kind of advice would you give yourself at that point in time?
There's a couple pieces of advice. Eventually you'll grow into yourself. So, didn't know what I wanted to be when I left college. Some people went into it knowing exactly what they wanted to do, and that can change. And even just personality wise, back in time, was I a much shyer person than I am now? Yes. You know what you
Right?
can't be in the world of consulting? Shy.
Would a podcast like freak
Or
you
a
out?
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so, if it's not happening now, it'll happen at some point. And just expect the unexpected. You'll be less surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I think always trying to just be knowledgeable, but roll with the punches. And that's a part of life, right? But it's the good and the bad. I think, it's sometimes surprising what you end up doing,
Yeah.
and how you get there. I, had written down a life plan at some point, and recently, actually, probably within maybe the last year. And even within that time frame, just said, wow, like I actually hit a couple of those things, and I'm really surprised that I did. And I never planned on doing that. I just wrote it down on a piece of paper, and it was very long. It was it was a paper. It was one tiny little project for grad school, and I just said it's amazing what's happened so far, and I can't wait to see what happens in the future. Just keep your eyes and ears open. I know, volunteering is a great way to do that, and a lot of times our company even does the 1% challenge.
Oh, cool.
Of donating time, and it's great to just learn a little bit more. You never know where it'll help you along the way, whether it's professional or personal growth. But it's volunteering and just getting out of your comfort zone will provide you way more bang for your buck than you would have ever expected.
Yeah, that's so true. Just get out of that comfort zone. Sage advice. Would you a few years ago would that person listen to you now?
I think so. I mean, I would listen to myself.
Listen, you.
Yeah.
Like Shayu's like, what's going on? You're from the future. Like,
but
I got to tell you stuff. Let's listen.
It's also crazy to think if you were to say to yourself 10, 20 years back, hey, here's this advice, but then also what's happened, you go, are you joking?
Right.
Or are you
That's
joking?
True.
Because I just think about a lot of just life events and things that have happened, and I never would have guessed.
Mm-hmm.
Good and bad.
Yeah, but it's a good point. Like, would like little us even fathom it? Like, hey, this is gonna be a kick-ass ride. Like, it's gonna be awesome. Dive into it. Just a few tweaks, right? Maybe don't date that person, or maybe you do because you need to realize how crazy people are. But then, hey, really dive into these things, and go with it. Go with your gut. That's great.
Yeah.
That's really good.
What advice would you give your little self?
Yeah, I think it's around following like the passion, like trying to stay in that passion zone where you're just like totally loving something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to your point about getting out of your comfort zone, you got to find it. So you feel compelled to do a bunch of crazy things, go do those.
Yep.
And then look back and see what was fun. And if it was fun, do more of it.
Yeah.
And then try to find things related to that, and every time I've done that, it's worked out amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I haven't done that, it's just normal, right? Like marketing was fine. And then bumped into part out was like, I like this thing. Yep. I can't stop talking about this thing. And then eventually it turned into consulting and all. Like, and I still can't stop talking about that thing. Right. But and so it's like, well, don't go hang out. I hung out in PPC land. I was just sort of a general marketer for a lot of people for a while, just doing moonlighting and that kind of thing. But it wasn't the one thing that I really loved. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as I focused on that area, then it just sort of all took off, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that'd be the advice I'd give myself, is just kind of go with that feeling and stay there, you know?
Yeah.
And if you get a feeling for something else, test it out to see. Like for me, podcasting, I feel just the same about podcasting as I do about Pardot. They both start with P's. I wonder if there's a trend here. I don't know, but either way, I'm like, okay, cool. I feel the same way about that. I need to do something about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's around. And then when you don't do that, not necessarily anything bad happens, but it's not nearly as fun. You work harder, and you know, it's almost like the normal life just happens. We're like, oh, I'm working a job and
Yeah.
I'm doing the things I
Just
do.
showing up. Yeah.
Yeah, you're showing right. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if you're in that zone, you're like, you're working at night, but it doesn't feel like work. I feel like I just play all day, which maybe is true, but I just feels good, you know,
Yeah.
on podcasting.
Yeah. And pizza, maybe. I mean, who
Pizza.
hates
Oh,
pizza?
and peaks. I like climbing mountains. Maybe it's
Yeah, and peaks. There you go.
Pardot, podcasting, and peaks.
Work it out.
Work it out. There it is. That's my new logo, my personal logo. This is awesome. Where can people connect with you?
LinkedIn, if you can spell my name.
Right? We'll
Twitter.
link to it so they don't even have to
There you
think
go.
about it.
I actually have I've always loved writing, and
cool.
finally decided to commit to it in, live form. So I started a blog recently called
Oh, I
marketingfinds.com.
love it.
That
There right
alone
now.
is hard to pick out. You're like, what's it going to be called? And I wanted to, and there's only a handful of posts now, but you should see the drafts area. I have ideas, and then I'm like, well, who's going to write all these?
Right?
but not just focusing on Pardot, but just marketing ideas in general. And even though that's Pardot's our sweet spot.
I love this. This is great.
But yeah, kind of just those random bits of advice, whether it's a really long post or a short, quick reference.
Mm-hmm.
So that's have that going on. And then on Twitter, my handle is at marketing Lori, but you can link to it. It's marketing, but just MKTG _.
Oh yeah, I see it. Yeah, we'll link to that too for sure. Get you all connected up on Twitter. This is awesome. Thank you so much for coming on here, hanging out with me. It's been a blast to talk shop, talk about your past, and just some takeaways and some lessons and all that.
Yeah, it's been great, and I really appreciate it. It's been a great time to be on your show, and it's always nice to talk with like-minded people about your day-to-day, your struggles, what you're seeing out there, and you feel it's just another piece of this isn't a job. It's you're doing it for fun.
Yeah, it's like we were just playing on the playground all day just now.
Yeah.
All right, recess is over. We're gonna get back to work, but
fine.
Right? For those people listening, if you learned something during this recess period, during this playtime, and I know you did because I literally have 2 pages of notes front and back, then share this with someone. Be a thought leader. One person, 2 people. Send a message or post something on your LinkedIn is a great place for it. But put your takeaways in there. The different things we talked about, from talking to IT, having good people on the team, how to really think about the different parts and places on the team or the company and the department, the actual capacity. We talked about so much, and then that advice at the end was just killer. So whatever your takeaways, throw them on LinkedIn, tag myself, tag Lori, we'll comment too. And that's how you do thought leadership. And it'll be awesome. So Lori, again, thank you for coming on here.
Thank
You're
you.
a rock star. Keep up the good work.
Have a good one.
Awesome.
Thank
and for those
you.
people listening, this has been the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will catch you all next time.